Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock here in the morning, Saturday morning, February the 12th. And up here, this is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse, Human Rights Abuses, and we're on for 30 minutes, and I don't have the chat room open. I don't usually have a whole lot of people listening live to this show. They usually catch the archive, and so I don't have the chat room open here. But today I want to talk about something that's really sitting heavy on my heart. This is an issue that to do with the Canadian International Learning Foundation and the Afghan ACC, the Afghan Canadian Community Center in Kandahar. And I'm a volunteer with the Canadian International Learning Foundation. I'm not as active as I used to be. I used to try to be active in help them. And they are out of Canada, Ottawa, Canada, and headed up by Ryan Aldred. And a whole lot of volunteers and awesome people who are doing a great job to promote education in Afghanistan as well as Uganda and other places. So I haven't been able to be as involved because I really awesomely received the position of Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and so in doing that, really it took over the rest of my free time, which I don't have a whole lot of, but I still support these guys, and I love the work that they're doing, and there's a particular issue that's going on right now that really can affect the whole situation with the school in Afghanistan, in Kandahar, and I personally know somebody who's going to that school, who I won't name names for security purposes, a young girl who is studying at that school, and the effect that the school's had on her life, and in Kandahar, where there's a huge problems. Everybody knows who's paying attention to the issues of the fighting and the war on in Afghanistan knows what's happening, especially around Kandahar. And I just want to bring attention to this because these people, these women, mainly women and children in Afghanistan, their lives are at peril all the time, and they have zero human rights. Really, they have human rights on paper, in their country's, parliamentarian books, but they don't have any human rights as far as what the people will uphold, what the police will uphold, what the government will uphold, and the justice system will uphold. They don't really have human rights, even though they say, quote unquote, that they have human rights. And so this school is hugely important because what it does is it promotes education. Education is really the key in stopping this whole war in Afghanistan. If you go back, I do a lot of studying, so I went back and I looked at the history of Afghanistan. I went back and looked at what happened, because Afghanistan, prior to the Taliban and prior to the Russians and the United States leaving back in around 1980, the 80s there, Afghanistan before that was just a place where women could hold jobs down. Women didn't have to wear those burqas. They were allowed to walk down the street. They were actually holding seats in government. They had a voice. They were able to go to school. There were schools. There were hospitals. But what the Taliban did when the United States actually gave a whole lot of these villagers and mountain people weapons to kick out the Russians back in the 80s there, they provided all the weaponry and the war machine really to get the Russians out. Then the Russians were kicked out of Afghanistan, and then the United States pulled out. And who pulled in? The religious group who decided to take over the country at that time, and that is the Al Qaeda and the Taliban and all that. And they took over the country, burned down the schools, killed the teachers, shut down the hospitals, shut down everything that the public needed, got rid of the history, and destroyed the history. So within about 30 years, the average Afghan person doesn't realize that they used to be free and that they used to have rights, and especially the Afghan women. They have no concept or idea that they used to actually have rights and have freedoms and be able to go to school, because they destroyed the Taliban and Al Qaeda destroyed their history. So if you can destroy a country's history, you can control a population, and that's how people do it. That's how monsters, these crazy people do this. They get a hold of a country, they get a hold of the teachers, the schools, they shut them down, burn the books, get rid of the history, and then keep the people under their thumbs, and that's what they do, right? So these people used to be free; they're not anymore, and we have a whole lot of troops over there. And I, just found out today that I have some personal friends whose children are now over there serving with the troops from the United States, and I will keep them in my heart and in my prayers. And people are dying over there, all for freedom. And people say, well, isn't that just stupid? Well, you know what? It's sad, is what it is, that their own country can't pull it together to fight this fight, against the Taliban, against Al Qaeda, and that there's all these groups have to go in there, to try to save these people from their own demise, right? But what I want to focus on here today is the issue that this school is so important. And this was an article that was posted on thestar.com, www.thestar.com. And this is lack of funds threatens Afghan school for women. And I'm a big supporter of this ACC here in Kandahar. So I want everybody to take a look at this. And this is published on Sunday, February 6th. So this is just last Sunday. Written by Paul Watson, Star columnist. It says, Kandahar, Afghanistan, a school that's a hallmark of Canada's struggle against Afghan insurgents, is on the brink of getting rid of some teachers and classes as Ottawa ponders whether to toss a lifeline. Afghan Canadian Community Centre, where thousands of girls and women have braved Taliban threats to get an education, needs more than $500,000 by month's end to avoid severe cutbacks, said Ryan Aldred, who heads a charity that supports the school. Now, that's the Canadian International Learning Foundation out of Ottawa, Canada. That's the group that I volunteer with and used to be quite active in, but now, like I said earlier, because of what I'm doing, I just have no time, sadly enough. But I still support them. I love what they're doing, and I love the whole idea that, what really brought me to want to get involved with the Canadian International Learning Foundation and this school here in Afghanistan, the ACCC, is because women and girls are they have to hide school, because they'll be shot down if there was all acid thrown in their face going to school. Well, that was part of the group of people in their faces. They're quite often shot. They could be beaten and beheaded if they're caught going to school. And these people, who, they're ready just to go and educate. And here we are in our country. We can go to school. Women and girls just talk to school. And we don't get shot at trying to go to school. We don't get acid thrown in our faces because we're going to school. I thought these people in their lives, these young women mainly, and to go to school, and they're willing to do it. They put their lives on the line to go to school. Not only that, the teachers take their lives into their own hands, because the teachers who teach a girl their lives are also threatened. So many of those teachers actually have to be in hiding, and what they do is they move all the time. They move around the country, and they have to get into the school to try to teach these kids. They have to leave, and they have to hide. They get killed. So there's so many people who put their lives to try to keep people, because people would like to turn their country around. They love what Canada's done. They love the United States. Honestly, I know, I talk to these people, and they appreciate and feel bad that people are dying over there because of their own country's stupidity, and because a religious group decided to take over the country. They don't like that. They want to have to. Many of them don't want this in their country. So I would say, would like to have access to education, health care, and everything else that we have. We enjoy our own people allowed this movement to take over the country, and this is what's going on. But anyway, Ryan Aldred, he had he headed up the Canadian International Learning Foundation, which supports the ACCC, the Afghan Canadian Community Centre, right? And this is the school where these girls and women go. Now, I know men can go to this school, but they have to pay. But the girls and the women are covered by funding, right? So this is the whole issue of the funding. So thousands of women, girls, and men have learned skills such as how to use computers, start a business, or speak English at the center. It has played a vital role in helping education become safer and more accessible for the women of Kandahar, said Aldred, president of the volunteer-run Canadian International Learning Foundation, the CANILF. These brave students are attending school at great personal risk to themselves and their families with the dream of building a better life. If these young women are willing to risk everything, I feel that the least we can do is to ensure that there's a school that can give them an education. The school would be close to shutting its doors altogether if it weren't for the generosity of Toronto Star readers who helped the center's backers raise a record amount of donations in 2010, Aldred said. And Star readers gave more than $25,000 to the center last year, following a November report about 16-year-old Roya Shams, an Afghan girl defying the danger of insurgent attacks to attend classes there. That's my friend, right? Roya is just taking risks to learn. She's trying to put her life on the line as a politician so she can stand up against Muslim extremists fighting to keep girls and women cloistered at home. And Star readers, moved by her bravery, made donations ranging from $10 to $4,000, which funded a new course and books for Roya. And that's awesome. Roya's a good friend of mine, and I haven't talked to her for a long time now, and I just hope that she's well and pray for her because her life is on the line every single day. She almost had to end her education for lack of money, but now she is starting a new course in English as a second language. The outpouring of support also brought more time for the Kandahar school itself. And thanks to the donations of Toronto Star readers, we have more time than I thought we would, Aldred said. It's difficult to say for sure, but I think we could afford about 6 months at current operating expenses before we would run out of funds. However, if the funding does not come through by the end of February, we're going to need to take immediate steps to cut costs so that the ACC can survive long term. Unfortunately, this is almost certainly going to mean laying off teachers and shutting down. Aldred and Andrea Caverly, now his wife, stepped in to rescue the school in 2006 after reading in the Star that its founder, Ahsanullah Ahsan, was broke and at wit's end. And Ahsanullah Ahsan is the leader he's really the head of the school, and he came over here to Calgary, to SAIT, to give a speech at SAIT Polytechnic here in Calgary, Alberta. And I missed this speech. I didn't get to go, and I didn't know about it, but it was a graduation speech, because what they did was they had the graduation ceremony for all of the women and men, mainly women students, who had gone through the program that's offered by SAIT, that is satellited over to Kandahar, right? These are programs that are available to these women from SAIT here in Calgary. So SAIT is also part of this huge, awesome, internet schooling, which is happening for these people in Kandahar, which wouldn't be possible, without the help of a whole lot of people, right? So these women graduated, and so Ahsanullah Ahsan came over, and he gave a speech. And the actual speech, if I actually it was put on the website, and I actually downloaded a copy, and it was awesome to hear what he had to say. And he just thanked people of Canada, and he thanked the people of the United States, and he just thanked everybody for what they're doing over there to try to help their people, because he knows that people are dying. His mother was killed in the battle, and many of his family members have been killed, and he himself has to run. He can't stay in the same place at any one time because his life is being threatened all the time, and his family's hidden away. But he's really working to help stop this mess that's over there. See, so there's a whole lot of good people doing a whole lot of good work to try to combat this craziness, this fighting, this war going on over there, that's just really going on because a group of religious extremists want to control the country. It has nothing to do with religion. They just want to squash the people and take over the resources and be able to control the country, right? So the sad part is who suffers? Everybody within that country really suffers. And so I'm a big proponent for all human rights, and that's worldwide. And so I do support this. I absolutely do. It says, to mobilize support for the Kandahar Center, the Ottawa couple set up this CANLF, which has raised around $1 million in grants, donations, and scholarships for the center's students. And the Canadian International Development Agency, that's CIDA, has contributed $313,773 to keep the school open. But when Aldred applied for more money in late 2009, because, you have to keep applying for these grants, right, CIDA eventually turned him down. So CIDA does not want to, at the time, support this initiative anymore, right? Which they had done previously, but now are turned him down. Although approved in principle, the grant was declined in May 2010 due to a lack of resources to support new initiatives. And this is a Canadian, International Development Agency, right? So priority currently placed on initiatives that directly support the attainment of CIDA's benchmarks, Aldred said. He has pressed the urgent need for renewed funding in meetings with Canada's Minister of International Cooperation, Bev Oda, and her senior officials, but CIDA is still weighing the request. We recognize the excellent work that the ACCC has done, significantly based on CIDA support to date, said Adam Sweet, a spokesman for the development agency in Kandahar. We're actively engaged with them and looking for options for ongoing sustainability. We will apply the usual rigor in consideration of their proposal, and while we cannot prejudge an outcome at this point, we are certainly committed to dealing with this expeditiously. And more than 2,000 students have taken courses at the center, and more than 600 of these students have already found long-term work as a result, Aldred said. Many of the students actually go on to work with CETA over there, or the groups that are working over in Kandahar and surrounding areas in Afghanistan. Many of the students that graduate from the ACCC, the Afghan Canadian Community Center, which is really the school, right? They go on to work with the government, and they work with the Canadian government, the U.S. government, and Afghan government to try to help their country. This is the reason why education is so important, because these people will effectively change the laws. They will change the landscape, and the fighting will stop. But it won't if we don't support and back up these initiatives that help promote education within their country. See, when the Taliban, this is why I brought out the history of this in the beginning of the show here, because people just need to take into account that they really don't know a whole lot about history. And if everyone would start reading and get a little bit of an education themselves, you'd be able to see that what happened there was that was a free country, and they were actually doing quite well, and you never heard much about Afghanistan, right? They were just doing their own thing, and they were happy, and they were just not bothering anybody. And what happened was the Russians went in there, and because the Russians tried to take over Afghanistan, the U.S. got involved and wanted to help the Afghan people boot out the Russians. So, see, if Russia would have never done that, then this whole thing would have never happened. But the United States backed up the fighters up in the hillsides there, which were these extremists anyway, kind of, no education, really just living up in the hills. They backed up those people with a bunch of weapons to kick out the Russians. So they did. They kicked out the Russians. Then the states left. And what happened was the Taliban took advantage of that and said, hey, the U.S. has dumped off a whole bunch of ammo, whole bunch of weapons, whole bunch of guns. Let's go over there, Al-Qaeda and Taliban, let's go over there and get a hold of those people, tear down the schools, ruin the history, get rid of the history so that nobody knows that they were ever free, that they were ever part of the government, that the women actually had rights, that there were hospitals, there was health care, there was, there were not the situations that are over there right now. So that's what they did. They destroyed the history so that the people wouldn't know they were free. So what's happening now with the ACCC and other groups who are working to try to educate the people over there is to say, look, you used to be free. Women used to be able to walk down the street. They used to hold jobs. They used to be the government. They used to have freedom to go to school, and you used to be free. See, but if people don't step up to the plate and actually get involved, then this will continue, this fight, this war, and it will get worse and worse because it will spill out to all the surrounding countries in the area, and which is what's really happened. And unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of people who want to see this stop because these are people just like you and me. These are moms and dads. These are sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles and cousins whose lives are being ripped apart, all because a religious group says, we want to squash you, right? And that's why the United States is over there, Canada, Germany, and a whole bunch of other countries, Australia and other people, because they're over there because they want to help save these people's lives. And that's the whole issue. And a lot of people don't, that's part of it. I know there's probably underlying issues as well, but that's one of the big parts of it, is because people they were just going to kill everybody within that country, right? The Al-Qaeda and the Taliban just going to kill all the women. If the women just didn't sit there and behave and just sit there in the home and be quiet, just kill them all, right? Because that's what they want to do. They want to destroy the country, right? It's very sad, and it never should have happened. So this is why education is so important for all of us. We all need to become educated about what's going on around the world, right? Because if we don't become educated, then we just form these opinions based on what we think we know. And, it's the same with Africa. It's the same situation in Africa, and who cares? Many people care about Africa, but they think, oh, well, it's their own problem. Let them fight it out. If they want to kill each other, whatever. But you know what, though? It affects us all. And you know what? Be very glad that you're not one of those women, laying there with your half of your body cut off and being raped. And, be happy that you're not one of those people. And think about those people that you could have been one of those people. And would anybody help you? You would hope so. That's the whole issue. We have to, I believe in putting myself in other people's shoes, mainly because I was abused as a child. I know what it's like to watch my family be destroyed by abuse and hatred. And hatred is a bad, bad thing. And this is what's going on within these countries, right? So I know this on a personal level as well as wanting to get involved internationally as well. So we can't, if we're going to sit back and say, oh well, it doesn't matter to me. Well, what kind of people are we then? What kind of a society are we? What kind of a world are we? So I know there's so many awesome people doing so much great work. That's because I study this and this is what I do. And I know that there's a lot of great work out there, but I'm trying to actually just bring attention to this, that there's also a whole lot of people that should be getting involved that don't, because they just don't care. But then, be glad that you're not one of those people, right? Very thankful, because you never know. It could happen to you, right? It's horrible. So they said that each employed student's income supports an average of around 6 members of their family, he added, and that's more than 4,000 Kandahar residents in total. So these 2,000 students, about 600 of them already have found long-term work because of this, and many of these jobs are governmental agency jobs working with these NGOs and also government agencies to try to help their country, right? It's very important for people to get involved and support this, because they will change their country. These people will change the face of this country. And many of these women, like if you go out and you actually start reading about these women's stories, these women who take their lives into their own hands just to go to school, just to go to help battered women. There's women who will open up their homes and other places to support battered women and to help these women who are being abused, right? And whose lives are in danger, right? And these women get shot at like every day. They get their lives are threatened every single day, and many of them die to do this. And I was reading this book. I can't remember the name of it. It's the voices of. Now, you know what? I'm going to actually research that out, and if I can get that information, I'll get it to you. This book, I wish I would have wrote it down. It was so good. I didn't care too much about the title. What I cared about was the content. So unfortunately now I don't remember what the title was. But it was stories about all these women, mainly in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other areas, who had many of them had died trying to change their country. See, so a lot of people over in the United States and Canada think that the Afghan people are just these people that, who cares? They're just troublemakers and causing all kinds of trouble. These people are just like you and me. They are exactly just like you and me. They want peace. They want freedom. They want to be able to come home and cook dinner for their families. They want to see their children taken care of. They want to see their children have schooling and be able to attend school. They want to see their girls be able to go to school, because of course the boys can go to school, but the girls, they want to see them to have a good life. They don't want them to be squashed underneath this religious extremist movement. And so they put their lives on the line, and many of them have died being shot at and blown up in their cars, blown up in their homes. And these are women like, they just look like you and me, except for they're wearing a scarf on their head. Who cares? They're beautiful people. I love the people of Afghanistan. And who I really love is the people who are over there fighting to save their lives. Not the United States and Canada and all the other coalitions that are over there, men and women dying to try to help save these people's lives. It breaks my heart. And, I thank everybody who's doing anything to help somebody, mainly because I was abused as a child. I really want people to understand this. I know what it's like for people to hurt people, and that there would be no help for them, because there was no help in my home. You know what I mean? And there was no hope. There's no help for a lot of people around the world. And so that's why I appreciate everybody who's standing up, to do anything for anybody, to be a hand and a help in a time of need, in a time of crisis. Because I lived through crisis, I lived through hell, right? And so I want people to realize how important it is that we become a hand for somebody, a hand of help, a voice of help, of hope. Get involved where you can to help out a group that you feel it needs help, right? There's so many people on this planet that need help. And if it's not within our own countries, then it's around the world. And what I say is, why not help your own country first, which is great. I believe in that. And then also get involved internationally. And that's what I do. Because I work locally, I work internationally, I work nationally. And I figured, hey, if I can cover all the bases, why not, right? It does take up all of my free time. But I don't care, because what else do I have that's better to do than try to help people out, right? Because I know I certainly was crying out for help when I was a kid, and there was no help for me, except for one family that stepped in for me when I was 13 and a half years old, and those people were my help. And I will never, ever forget what they did for me, and I will never forget the love that they showed me, and the care and the concern, and the good example that they showed me, and the hope that they gave me to continue on, to try to live, right? And so that's what these people, I'm sure, these people over here, these women in Afghanistan who know that people are dying just over there and spilling, their blood's being spilled in their country because of their own stupidity. And they appreciate, they really do appreciate it, because I know, because I talk to these people, and I also watch what's going on, and I see the interviews that's done with the particular students. Please go to their website. There's an article from their website, the Canadian International Learning Foundation. Help Save the Afghan Canadian Community Center. And this is from CANILF, www.canilf.org. And if you go there, this is the website for the Canadian International Learning Foundation, which Ryan Aldred heads up with his wife, Andrea. And there's a whole lot of volunteers, Charles Crosby. I mean, I can't even begin to list them off. There's a lot of people involved who do a lot of great work, and they need help. If you want to volunteer, or if you want to make a donation, the funding goes to promote education, provide funding for schools in Afghanistan, in Uganda, as well as a project that's going on in northern Canada. And so they are kind of, they're a grassroots, not-for-profit, non-governmental organization, right? They're a charity, and they are, like Ryan Aldred and Andrea, have given their lives and really given everything that they have to do this, including, making personal sacrifices that you wouldn't believe. So please go to their website and check it out to see what these people are doing, these awesome people are doing, to try to help make a difference in this world. And if you want to get involved, please do. They need help, and they need all the assistance that they can get. You can. There's letters that you can write to your prime ministers if you would like to get involved. This is obviously a Canadian issue because it's Canada International Learning Foundation. The CEDA, Support for the Afghan Community Center, there's a letter that you can actually send to the member of parliament or anybody who representing your own province, right, to try to get them to see the importance of why this school should remain open and why they need the funding, so that they don't have to, lose teachers and shut courses down and eventually lose the school, because these people, their lives would be greatly affected, right? These people, they are counting on this, right? They're counting on this school. This school is a sense of hope for them. I don't know whether anybody realizes that, but there's 2,000 students, whose lives have been really, actually more than 4,000 total beneficiaries, right, from this school. Who count on this school to be there. It's a sense of hope. It's a sense that their country will eventually change, and that things will change, and that they will once again be free to walk freely around without being shot at and killed and murdered and beaten and blown up, right? And that the U.S. and Canada could eventually go home, which Canada's pulling out anyway shortly here, and that no one would have to die on their soil anymore to try to protect them and to try to get their country back. This is ridiculous. And these people, they really count on this school because it does help. It gives them a sense of hope and a sense of help. But not only that, it educates them, and they get to learn their history again, because their history, of course, was shut down when the Taliban and Al-Qaeda took over. So they get to learn that they were free, and that they were actually really quite like the United States and Canada. They were free, and they had schools, and they had the ability to be part of the government. They had a say, their voice counted. And they had a great country before all this happened, right? So make sure you check out the history of that before you judge these people too harshly, right? Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. If you want to get involved, contact www.canilf.org, and that's Ryan Aldred out of Canada, Ottawa, Canada. And if you would like to make a donation, like I said, or just get involved and volunteer and pass the word, make sure you do. If you need any further information, get a hold of me on here on Blog Talk Radio. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, and also as well next Monday, one child abuse survivor to another. And don't forget, Monday night, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, Ray Luskin's going to join me, and we're going to talk about adult survivors issues, self-love, nurturing, and we're learning how to take care of ourselves as survivors of child abuse, right? So be sure and tune in for that on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, Monday night, February 14th at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then next Friday, February the 18th, I'm going to have John Schmidt come on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, and he's going to talk to us about the issues of shutting down the child sexual predators on Facebook and the other social networking sites in regards to what can be done to help stop these child sexual predators and pedophiles who are freely posting on the social networking sites. So I hope you will tune in for that. John Schmidt, he's a good friend of mine. He's also a volunteer with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I consider him my brother. And that's going to be February 18th, coming up here next Friday. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a great day, and make sure you be a hand to somebody. Do something to try to help somebody out. It's a good feeling, and it really helps them out. And you want to talk about making a difference in someone's life, man. That's all it takes, just a helping hand. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.